Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal. And I'm here today with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, David. How are you doing tonight?
It's day 8,000 of the pandemic and day 50,000 of the lockdown, so as well as can be expected. And Team Canada just lost to Team USA with 2-0, which is always a bummer, total bummer. You know, Bruce, one thing I would say is North American hockey, you can smell the money burning when you watch those players on the ice. Hockey is a rich person's game, and in North America, we're willing to spend more money than anyone else on player development, and you can see that in the skill level of these players. All of these players, almost all of them, just unbelievable, fantastic skill. And I found them in the games that I watched for the tournament just a cut above the European competition. With obviously that's not always the case, but it's starting to be a trend in hockey the last 10 years where these two countries are getting a lead, and I don't see the other. Maybe Sweden's hanging in there, but I don't see the other countries hanging in very well necessarily. We're going to do 3 things on the game, 3 things each. So we will start with your take on the game, Bruce. What did you think of that game?
Well, I would say I hated that game in a lot of ways. Having a rooting interest, it was so frustrating to watch that game. Canada just could not ever penetrate the slot of the USA until very late in the third period. By my unscientific count, Canadian forwards had 0 shots on net from the slot, center slot, until I think Dylan Holloway got a rocket with about 5 minutes left, and then there was a couple of chances.
3 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, there was a couple of chances like late in desperation time where even if they did score, they probably weren't going to win, And it was, they generated, their best chance came on their one penalty kill of the night when the Americans were pressing offensively, and Bowen Byram hit the post, which is always a fun thing for the losing side to remember. And then the other one was when the Braden Schneider, also a defenseman, tried to deke the excellent Spencer Knight in tight, and Knight just got sort of the sweater of his arm on it just enough to tip it over the crossbar. And the forwards, when they did generate looks, they either couldn't hit the net or they couldn't get their shots through.
He is some goalie that night.
Yeah, he was good. He was good, but the shot clock says 33-21 for Canada, but it was oddly distributed, and USA really kind of just shut down the center of their own zone and let Canada shoot away from the outside a little bit. But the Americans, give them credit, they played their hearts out in this game, and I thought they deserved to win, to be frank.
Canada outcoached, possibly. I mean, the Americans, they just seem to be able to cycle the puck quite a bit. Their best players, especially. This is my first thing. Their best players were better than our best players, I thought, in this
100%.
game. And boy, that Sanderson's a horse, and I can see why Ottawa drafted him. Zegras is a fantastic player. You can see why Anaheim drafted him. And Philip Boldy, very good player. And those guys, they really dominated the puck at times and created great scoring chances. Bruce, I will say that a game like this comes down to bounces and on a certain level. Like it was a very close game. And in the first period in the power play, near the end of the first, I think it was, sponsored by Milk, the power play, Canada could have scored easily. Like they're just, if they just had a little bit of luck on a bounce here or there, they could have been right back in the game at that point. And this is hockey. And if I know coaches, I'm just a low-level minor hockey coach. And I can tell you, I don't know how many, I've probably been in, 5 to 10 championship games in playoffs and tournaments over the years. And, man, when you lose a game, even as a low minor hockey coach, it's all you think about. it just keeps running through your mind for more than a year. It can still run through your mind. None of them still go through my mind very much anymore, but I can imagine that the Canadian coaches 24/7 for the next 18 years, they're going to be thinking about this game and about the bounces and about what went wrong and about their strategy. And I feel sorry for them, and I feel sorry for the players, because it's a tough way to lose. But this is why we love hockey. I kind of liked the game. I thought it was a good game. I thought it was.
It was a hard fought game.
It was a hard fought game in Canada. I thought they came out strong and then lost it. Suddenly the Americans, that young American kid, what's his name? Vermeer. He rushed up. He made a great rush up the ice.
Matthew Beniers, number 10.
Beniers, is that it? He made a great rush up the ice, and it just seemed to suddenly snap the U.S. And of course, he had that great shift leading to the first goal. Yeah, good for the Americans. I have nothing but respect for that hockey playing nation. They're not as good as us, clearly, overall. I'm just saying that as a troll. They're really close. But what worries me is whenever I see Canada play the USA, I want our best players to be the best player. So when we form a real Team Canada in a big tournament, if that ever happens again, that we will have those super elite players that outclass their super elite players. We've had that in both at the very top end and in depth for a long time. But maybe the Americans are going to be catching up. They've got a huge hockey playing population, almost as large as ours, if not larger. And that was a hell of a performance from those guys. So, Bruce, what's your next?
Here's the stat from their best players against our best players. This is the starting lineups for the teams. And the USA, Drew Helson +2, Jake Sanderson +2, Trevor Zegras +2, Alex Turcotte +2, Arthur Kiliev +2. And for Canada, Bowen Byram -1, Jamie Drysdale -2, Jacob Pelche -2, Connor McMichael -2, Dylan Cousins -1. They got beat they just couldn't match up against the Americans' best group. And both goals came as a result of heavy pressure in Canadian territory, where the Canadians were unable to clear the zone. On one of the goals, they made a partial line change, which was why those minuses were a little bit mixed up there. But the American first line generally dominated a number of shifts head-to-head, and the power v power matchup. And Canada's depth, you would like to think that would make up. But the whole rest of the game was 0-0. It was just decided basically by those two shifts, and it was those were second one. They got a real lucky bounce off the back of the net, but to me they were earned goals, and they were earned goals against. To be frank,
what's your next thing? You're gonna go the 20 minutes?
This game was weird, man. Like the shot clock, it was like a boomerang. It was 7-2 for Canada after about 8 or 9 minutes of the first period. They didn't quite get to the 10-minute mark, and the Americans started to come back. And it went from 7-2 Canada to 19-10 for the Americans. So the Americans outshot Canada 17-3 over that next portion of the game, the decisive part where the two goals were scored. And then from the midway point of the second period till the end, the Americans they started to hang back. They did have a couple of shots that missed the net, but they only had 2 shots the rest of the way, and Canada had 24. So it was like this yo-yo in terms of the momentum. But by the time Canada sort of seized the initiative again, they were down 2-0, and they weren't, as I said before, not getting into the slot. They were all of their sort of clean looks seemed to come from the outside of the face-off circle, angled shots, and Spencer Knight had all the answers for those.
My next thing to talk about is Dylan Holloway. Mm-hmm. And Bruce, I have to say, he got better as the tournament went on. I think he probably got healthier as the tournament went on. Bob Stauffer of Oilers Now mentioned today he's playing hurt, some kind of arm or shoulder injury, which prevents him from shooting. And I think I noticed that in previous games. He looked freer. He looked a little freer in his movement today and a little sharper with the puck. Because what you both you and I, when I made the D. McCammon comparison, to him. Both you and I had noticed a little lack of sharpness with the puck, and the fact he would
Mm-hmm.
never stop on the puck and make a play. And I was expecting, like, there was lots of turnovers with him and the puck. Not necessarily, the play ended with him a little bit too much for my liking in those early games. I saw much less of that. And what I saw an NHL player, Bruce. When you're looking for NHL skills, the speed and the size are such crucial factors as in the NHL game, and they still are. I mean, people can get around that. Players get around that now with just superlative, otherworldly skill. Nonetheless, some of the players out there, and I'm not going to name names because I haven't seen enough of these players to know, but they reminded me a little bit of like when Sam Gagner was a junior, great player, but didn't have the size or the speed. And in the end, I think as much as anything, though, that's what stopped Sam Gagner from being, the skating. The skating was the main issue. And I saw that with, honestly, I saw that with 3 or 4 Canadian forwards who have been drafted fairly highly. Lots of skill, but the size and especially the skating speed isn't there for them. And it made me glad to see that the Oilers had taken. I could understand the Oilers draft decision, and now who knows how this is all going to turn out for any of these players. But it made me understand the draft decision, and I'm cool with it. I'm good with it, and especially after watching him tonight, like he was one of the few players who could make a physical difference in the game, who could use his speed and size to hammer on the American defense. He was rewarded with an absolutely brilliant chance late in the game. It would have been fantastic if he scored, obviously. But he did not score. He's not an elite sniper.
Right.
But
that was a good shot, though.
That was a good shot. He's, I'm going to be careful about what I say about him. It's just like when we rate Broberg in this tournament. Both these players were playing injured. So you have to be careful about any assessment that you make of either of those guys based on this. But especially Broberg, because he was really banged up. Holloway, again, got stronger as the tournament went along. So I'm good with that draft pick at this point. I didn't see a player who was drafted below Holloway who I was thinking, oh, geez, I wish the Oilers had taken him. And honestly, Bruce, I didn't see a player who was drafted after Philip Broberg who I think, oh, I wish the Oilers had gotten him instead. And that includes Trevor Zegras. Not even, no, I honestly, Bruce, having seen Broberg play all year long in Sweden, would I trade, knowing what the Oilers need, would I trade Trevor Zegras for Philip Broberg today? No, I would not. There's my hot. Some people will see that as a hot take of the day, but that's what about you?
Well, I saw Zegras pretty good, and he did have a goal and assist tonight in a 2-0 win, and I think he wound up on top of the tournament scoring leaders, and he was a factor in every American game I saw, which was not all of their games, but he scored points in the games I didn't see. He's a fine player. And with Broberg, it's still a little bit of a black box. Like, I really don't know what we're going to get at when we finally get to open that box, and see what kind of NHL players inside. It's a very tantalizing package at this point in time. Fancy wrappings and ribbons, right there under the tree. And
it's like my wife wrapped it instead of me wrapping it. Yeah, I got it.
So he's a tantalizing talent. Let's say that, and it could turn out to be a major win for the Oilers. There's no question, but time will tell how he comes around. Very disappointing that we didn't get to see him anywhere near his best. And I mean, 2 Oilers in the tournament, both first-round picks, and they both got hurt right at the beginning. I mean, that's a drag. For Holloway, mea culpa on Holloway. Last podcast, now granted, I was mainly praising him, but I did criticize his hands and said the puck went through his stick a little too often. He didn't make enough clean plays on the puck for my liking. Well, turns out that the upper body injury that had been sort of rumored to be a head injury turns out to have been something with his arm or his wrist or his hand or something.
There you go.
That he was having trouble shooting the puck, presumably not just that, but handling it, passing it, gripping the stick, all those things. Anyway, so that kind of explains, at least it offers a possible explanation to that weakness that I noticed of his game earlier in the tournament. So actually, I didn't mind hearing that he had hand injury because it kind of explained what I've been seeing. But he did look the last couple games. I thought he looked a little more secure handling the puck and passing it. And that one shot that he let go, that was a rocket. And the goalie saw it late and just got a pad on it.
Bruce, your third thing, Dylan Cousins.
Yeah, he was Canada's best player, or certainly their best forward throughout the tournament. I mean, they had a number of guys on defense that played really well, and Bowen Byram and Jamie Drysdale. I really like Braden Ghoule in this tournament, but Cousins was their driver up front, and he played terrific hockey right through. And unfortunately, tonight he came up short in what was the biggest game of the tournament for me. He just he wasn't clicking, and he was uh, misfiring on his shots. He whiffed one good chance from the slot or fairly early in the game that he just whiffed and didn't get any shot at all. Shot wide several times, only one shot on net, and frankly, an egregious turnover on the build up to the 2-0 American goal that really put Canada behind the eight ball, where he had the puck inside his own zone and under a little bit of pressure, but no actual physical contact. He just made a very weak, basically pass to the American defenseman up the boards, when a little bit of hardness on the puck there would have at least got the puck out. And that was the first shift of the second period, and it was a game changer. So, I hate criticizing young kids. These are all teenagers. I mean, the American captain turned 20 today, and I think he was the oldest player in the tournament. Uh, but you're watching. There people are certainly quick to praise them when they play well, which mostly they did. But in tonight's game, this kind of echoes the point you made earlier, that the Americans' best players outplayed Canada's best players, and unfortunately, Dylan Cousins is on that list.
The one player you mentioned that you liked, I think, Braden Ghoule, and I think you morphed together two names there, Bruce. Braden Schneider and Caden Ghoule. Braden Schneider is
He's
one nasty cuss. Man, he is fierce. I liked him. But Caden Ghoule, we mentioned him last podcast. We may well have, because I really there was rumors that the Oilers were thinking of taking Caden Ghoule. I can see why. He's got a ton of defensive skill, especially. His offensive game is not elite, but he can really play hockey. So he's my third thing tonight. Like, he's a player that I could, like, there was some talk about him going in the top 10. I can see why. And he may turn out better than some of the players taken in the top 10 of that draft. Yeah, so there we go, Bruce. Let's talk. Go ahead. You got
one. Just one more point on the World Juniors. You talked about the Canada-U.S. Rivalry and the balance, and certainly Canada's had their successes against the U.S. on New Year's Eve and in early medal round games. But this is the fifth time they've met in the gold medal game. And other than the very first one, way back in 1997, when Canada won 2-0, same score as tonight, with the winning goal produced by one Boyd Devereaux, then an Oilers prospect. That was way back in 97. Since then, the Americans have won 4 straight gold medal showdowns with Canada. And frankly, tonight's was less of a heartbreaker than the other 3, one of which was Marc-Andre Fleury banking a puck into his own net off of Patrick O'Sullivan. Another one was John Carlson scoring in overtime after Jordan Everly had scored 2 late goals to tie it up, send it to overtime. That was 2010. And then the most recent one was the 80-minute went to a shootout in 2017 when Charlie McAvoy played half the game and Caleb Jones played the other half for the USA, and they won in the shootout. So the other 3-1 goal, just excruciating defeats. And tonight, like I said earlier, I think the better team won. And when I say that, you have to accept the result when the better team wins. You don't have to be happy about it, but you have, there's they delivered the goods, and they came up with a tremendous team effort, Team USA tonight, and they paid a lot of prices, man. There was a lot of guys in the blocking shots and going down, and also dominating the face-off circle, which was another frustration tonight.
Yeah. Canada kept shifting around its lines too. They never really did settle in, did they? Anyway, to the Americans, I have two things to say: 2010 and 2014 Olympics. Moving on.
2002 as well, huh? Salt Lake City.
Exactly, right in your home country,
Mm-hmm.
right in the heart of
Then in our home country, yeah, those are the two gold medal games against the USA. So we always have
2000.
those.
Yeah, 2010 is like the ultimate for
Mm-hmm.
Canadian hockey fans of this century. 2010 is the greatest moment uh,
The century.
of the century,
Mm-hmm.
of our lifetime. No,
Well,
just the
this
century,
century.
because there were some great ones last century too, which
Uh-huh.
you and I are well aware of. All right, the Oilers, Bruce, they started their training camp. The
Mm.
news at the start of training camp was four players were not, deemed unfit to play, probably because I don't know, getting late into town, maybe injury. We don't really know. It's all a big secret. They are James Neal, Gaetan Haas, Devon Shore, and Dominic Cahoon.
Mm.
So I think Cahoon's a fine because Cahoon is going to find his way onto one of the top two lines, I think, when he gets to town. He is, Bruce, from my short watching of the player, watching, I think, about 5 of his games from last year after the Oilers acquired him. He is very Jordan Eberle-like. And I watched a game, the one game he played in Germany this year, an
Yeah.
exhibition game.
Mm-hmm.
He is an Eberle-like attacker, very clever with the puck, a good passer of the puck, an okay shooter of the puck. It's just super dangling with it in for short bursts of time. Neal, Haas, and Shore, this is bad news for them. Not so much for Neal, he's got a guaranteed contract, but Haas and Shore, they're battling
Yeah.
for a fourth line center job, and this sets them back considerably. Haas is only, like, I don't know if he's skating wherever he is, but at least he was playing in Europe. Shore, I don't know, Shore wasn't even playing, was he? So
Nope.
he's really in tough.
Yeah, Haas, he was exposed to somebody who had COVID, and so he had to undergo a longer quarantine than he'd hoped. So he's been set back for that reason. Not that he's had a positive test for COVID, but just that he was exposed to someone who did have one. So sort of a 1 degree of separation from COVID, but uh, it's a time killer for him. And uh, for sure, he was such a late signing, and I'm not sure if he came in from the USA or if he again is waiting out a quarantine period. And the others, rumor was one of them might have like an actual injury. Jason Greger was talking about that, but he wasn't sure which one, whether it was Cahoon or Neal. And he even thought one of the injuries that injury might carry into the regular season and force a move to the injured reserve. But all that stuff's kind of premature, and the you talk about degrees of separation. Well, you're always at least 1 degree of separation against what's away from what's really going on. But with the separation of the media from the scrum. It
Yeah,
feels like we're about 3 degrees of separation away from what's really going on. And even when there is interaction, on Zoom interviews and stuff, it just doesn't have the same sort of.
can they
Uh,
watch? Can the media guys watch the practice even?
I don't know. You must know some media guys.
I could ask. I'll ask. Yeah, I do. I'll ask them. I haven't been paying that close attention to it. Because
I haven't
it's
seen
again,
much footage
it's just
for
very
sure.
preliminary and like whatever the players say, I find it kind of like honestly, I find it a little bit boring. Because what are they going to say? They,
They're in the best shape of their lives, David.
yeah, exactly.
Every year you get to check that being spot on. It's like the free space on the bingo card because you always get it from somebody or other. Milan Lucic. I'm in the best shape of my life. Well, yeah.
And even Tippett, who's usually a pretty interesting guy to hear, like there's just not much to say right now. He has gone back to the RNH McDavid Cassian line, and he's got Ennis with Draisaitl and Yamamoto. Of course, last year in the playoffs, this made me absolutely crazy uh, because you broke up the best line in the NHL, and you didn't make the other team stop it. You stopped it yourself. So I thought the coach out thought himself there. Bruce, this year I'm more sanguine right now about this arrangement. Uh, at times RNH and McDavid have had chemistry. Not last year, but there was one year when RNH was first moved to the wing. I think Ty Ratty might have been on the line at the end of the year there, him and RNH, and that line was good. So, excuse me, let's see how this does. And with Cahoon coming in, it really changes everything in terms of the dynamic. I think Cahoon's going to fit in, I think, with one of McDavid or Draisaitl. And so even if the Draisaitl Yamamoto line doesn't have RNH, they'll have a very good hockey player in Cahoon, who is also really good at cycling and moving the puck and playing that style of play. So I'm a lot calmer than I was last August when I was not at all calm.
Well, hopefully he's the missing ingredient to two left wing.
Yeah.
And if he is, I mean, I certainly understand why they want to give McDavid a little more support on the wings. I mean, last year, while the Dynamite line was blowing up the NHL, McDavid spent quite a few games with James Neal and his broken toe on one wing, and Zach Cassian on the other, and he had two big kind of lumbering guys out there with him, and McDavid himself was providing most of the offense from that trio, and he was a good soldier, and but I would understand that the team, I mean, they're investing $12.5 million a year in McDavid, just to put it in economic terms. They need a guy they can put out there that's going to outscore the other team and win his portion of the game. So they're going to try and find the best combination to bring him out. And Nuge, I mean, I've said this before, the best solution is to clone the Nuge and put two of them out there, one on each of those two lines. But that's not an option. And Cahoon, of all the options that were available to the Oilers this summer, Cahoon was the most intriguing one, with the personal connection to Leon Draisaitl that might make Nugent Hopkins a little bit less of a wishbone, where the two guys sort of both want him on their
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
So hopefully the Cahoon, first of all, hopefully he's healthy soon and able to play, and hopefully he and Draisaitl pick up their relationship. They know each other pretty well. They played together on a lot of teams, a lot of national teams, and some club teams over a decade. So hopefully that history will play to the Oilers' favor.
Cahoon has had injury problems. He had fairly significant ones on and off last year. So hopefully this injury thing isn't him. We'll see about that. First, I kind of like the third line too. Archibald, Turris, and Puljujarvi. There's a little bit of crash with the savvy veteran center, and Jesse Puljujarvi, who is the great unknown, but lots of potential there. So you could see that working out actually, right? Where Puljujarvi is the main puck carrier, working with Turris, and Archibald's banging around there and doing what he does, not whatever he does, but what he does, because he's an effective hockey player. So I didn't mind that combination either. And then we have Nygaard, Kara, and Chason. We're both big Nygaard fans, I think, at this point. So I'm hoping he makes the team with, the starting team, the starting 12 forwards, and we'll see.
With the absences of twin absences of Haas and Shore, this is a huge opportunity for Jujhar Khaira.
Yeah.
And I mean, not that he's not already a known commodity, but I mean, he was going to be battling for the 4C. Well, as of now, he's the one man that's out there and able to take that position and hopefully find some chemistry with those line mates. The other guy you mentioned, Jesse Puljujarvi, man, there's been a real surge of very positive commentary about how good he's looked in the first couple of days of camp, and boy, would that solve a lot of problems if he found what it's going to take to put together all those glorious pieces that he has. I mean, he's a gifted player, and if he can put it all together, that would be a huge development. And so far, I mean, training camp, what can you say? But he's come out and played well, and I saw some quotes from him in English, talking about how much better his English was, and you could read the quote and you say, yeah, just from how you strung those words together, you you made big steps, and I think that was a problem for him, and hopefully that's a problem that he's worked on and will go away, and those are very encouraging words indeed to see attributed to Yessa himself.
Bruce, is there any word? Have you gotten any word if they're going to be showing any inter-squad games at all? Do you know? Haven't heard
I
anything.
have not. Like, it'd be nice if they had like a Colby Cave sort of um, redo of that game they had at the end of the summer camp before they played Calgary. You remember they had that game where
Yeah,
everybody wore number 12? It was a little confusing, but at least the stream was on. It was watched by like thousands and thousands of people. And if the Oilers are, if they're looking to sort of kick up the fan interest, they could do worse than to stream again something like that. Just
I think
the
they
inter
should.
squad game.
They might have 2 or 3 inter-squad games. I wouldn't be surprised. They need them before their first game, so
Oh,
I
sure.
hope they show them all. And I would encourage if there's any people from the Oilers organization, just mention to the people in charge of that, like show them, show us. I think they will. Like I don't think we have to tell them that. Like they know that there's a hardcore group of faithful fans, like at
Oh,
least
yeah.
maybe 10 to 20,000, 10,000 who will watch that, right? And you and I are among that group, so show us the games. Show us the games.
Yeah, run a 50-50 and raise another 500 grand.
Aren't they raising millions at the World Junior
Yeah,
Tournament?
yeah. Well, I think if it was the Colby Cave Cup, it might, they might lose a zero off the end of that, but it was still,
Okay,
the,
that's
the
true.
way this city eats up 50-50s, I don't know. I'd like to say all bets are off, but maybe they're on.
Bruce, let's leave it there. We can talk about the
Sure.
defense another time because we may, I think as there's more news now, the podcasts might be more frequent here and a little bit shorter. So if you are a longtime listener or watcher of the Cult of Hockey, that's what you can expect in the coming weeks. And of course, during the regular season, we will be back, myself, Bruce, and Kurt Levins, with the ye old Cult of Hockey game grades.
Hmm.
And the Scoring Chance project is back on.
Yep.
So, man alive, here we
And the
go.
post-game podcast,
The
this is
post
kind
game
of a dry run
podcast.
tonight
Yeah.
with player grades, which I'm about to write for the gold medal finale, and this podcast. So this is kind of a tune-up for us right now. We don't get any preseason games to find our form, so this is it.
Alrighty, Bruce, thanks for talking tonight.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.